The Senate will come to order. The chaplain, Dr. Barry Black, will lead us in the Senate prayer.
Listen to our prayers, Almighty God, and hurry to provide us with your wisdom. Inspire us to trust you, for you are our mighty rock and fortress. Lord, lead and guide our lawmakers, enabling them to honor your name as they follow your leading. Protect them from the hidden traps that derail freedom as they seek to reopen our government. Show yourself strong, even when they wander from your plan. Empower our senators to trust you, seek your wisdom, and obey your precepts. We pray in your matchless name. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our wonderful flag in this unbelievable country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The clerk will read a communication to the Senate.
Washington, D.C., November 7, 2025, to the Senate. Under the provisions of Rule 1, Paragraph 3 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, I hereby appoint the Honorable James C. Justice, a senator from the state of West Virginia,
Mr. President,
The senator from Wyoming.
suggest the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alston-Brooks.
Majority Whip.
And I ask unanimous consent that the quorum call be vitiated.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I move to proceed to calendar number 168, H.R. 5371.
The clerk will report.
Motion to proceed to calendar 168, H.R. 5371, an act making continuing appropriations and extensions for fiscal year 2026 and for other purposes.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent, suggest the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Alsobrooks.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the quorum call be suspended.
Without objection.
Well, Mr. President, the junior senator from Connecticut certainly believes in saying the quiet part out loud. This is what he said, and I quote, "I think there will be some pretty substantial damage done to a Democrat brand that has been rehabilitated if on the heels of an election in which the people told us to keep fighting, we immediately stop fighting." He said that on a podcast yesterday. He went on to say that the 2026 election is just 12 months away. And if we surrender without having gotten anything, and we cause a lot of folks in this country who had started to believe in the Democrat Party to retreat again, I worry that it will be hard to sort of get them back up off the mat in time for next fall's election cycle, end quote. Let me repeat that, Mr. President. This is what he said. "I worry that it will be hard to sort of get them back up off the mat in time for next fall's election cycle," end quote. I'll let that sink in for a minute, Mr. President. I don't think it's a secret to anybody that the Democrats shut down the government for political reasons. There's been plenty of news coverage of the incredible pressure that their far-left base has been exerting. But in case anyone was still under the impression that Democrats were driving this shutdown toward its 40th day out of concern for the American people, well, the junior Democrat from Connecticut pretty handily dispelled that notion. Again, that's what he said. "I worry that it will be hard to sort of get them back off the mat in time for next fall's election cycle," end quote. And just in case anyone needed any additional testimony, Axios reported on Wednesday, and I quote, "A set of post-election talking points circulated among Democratic congressional offices warned caving without concessions would sap Democrats' momentum and undercut the party's support from its base. Democrats throwing Republicans a rope in exchange for nothing would be political self-sabotage," it added. Political self-sabotage, Mr. President. Now, there are two very striking things about these quotes. One, of course, is the focus not on the American people, but on how to ensure Democrats win the next election. And two is the fact that progressive Democrats apparently want to keep this shutdown going forever. We're on day 38 of Democrat shutdown. Day 38. Federal workers have gone more than a month now without pay. They don't know how they're going to pay their mortgage or buy food, thanks to Democrats. A lot of them are supposed to get another paycheck today. Instead, they'll see a deposit of exactly $0 in their bank account. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Head Start preschools have closed. Veterans programs have shuttered. Many Medicare recipients can't get access to telehealth. National Guard troops aren't training. SNAP benefits are in profound jeopardy. There are people going hungry right now because Democrats refuse to agree to a clean, nonpartisan funding extension. And of course, then there's air travel. Because of staffing shortages caused by Democrat shutdown, the Department of Transportation had to issue a mandatory reduction in air travel beginning today. Hundreds of thousands of people will be affected every day, to say nothing of disruptions to the movement of packages and goods. But nothing seems to move Democrats. Nothing. Not hungry Americans, not massive disruptions to our economy. Nothing. Mr. President, if I were a Democrat, I would be embarrassed. I mean, flat out embarrassed to walk into this building every day, to walk past the men and women of the Capitol Police who are not getting paid, thanks to Democrats, to walk past junior staffers, many of whom are undoubtedly frantic by this point as they wonder how they're going to pay their rent and continue to buy food. How can Democrats look any of these people in the eyes? And please don't tell me they're fighting for some greater good for the American people. If Democrats can be said to be fighting for anyone at all besides themselves, they are fighting for a fraction of a fraction, for a tiny percentage of the small percentage of Americans who are on Obamacare. The number of people they're supposedly fighting for is dwarfed, and I say dwarfed, Mr. President, by the number of people whose lives and livelihoods they are damaging. And as for the claim that Democrats got some kind of mandate from the American people on Tuesday to continue jeopardizing food stamps for 40 million Americans in need, give me a break. Democrats performed well in 3 states where Democrats often perform well. Congratulations. I really don't think that means that the American people have all signed up to be democratic socialists. And it sure as heck doesn't provide a good reason for making 40 million Americans go hungry. Mr. President, I would like to think that the junior senator from Connecticut doesn't represent all Senate Democrats. But if there are Senate Democrats out there who do still care about hardworking Americans and not just Democrats' election prospects, the time to act is now. Not when the far left decides this exercise can be over. Not when federal workers are lining up at food banks for their Thanksgiving meal. Now, today, I hope, Mr. President, there are at least 5 more Democrats out there with a backbone who will vote with us to reopen the government and end these weeks of misery for the American people. Mr. President, I yield the floor, and I suggest the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Zosser-Brooks.
Mr. President,
Majority Whip.
thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent that the quorum call be vitiated.
Without objection.
Mr. President, today is November 7th, 2025. We are now 1 month and 7 days into the longest shutdown in the history of the American government. Democrats can stand here and claim they've broken the record. But for what? For leverage, for politics. Meanwhile, in every state of this union, the American people are getting hurt. They don't seem to care one bit. Soldiers are working without pay at Fort Bragg in Georgia. Where are the 2 Democrat senators from Georgia? A single mom in Michigan is struggling to put food on the table for her children. Where are the 2 Democrat senators from Michigan? Capitol Police officers and staff members on this very floor in this very building are struggling to pay their bills. Do the Democrat senators care about any of them? Government is still closed. They're not getting paid. Each and every one of these people are being hurt by the Schumer shutdown. Every one of them. And every day it gets worse for them. Yet Senator Schumer bragged to the press, bragged to them. He said, every day gets better for us. I'm wondering who us is. Certainly not the American people. Certainly not the people whose flights were grounded today all across the country. You know, to keep our airlines and to keep our skies safe, the FAA directed airlines to reduce the number of flights. It's the right thing to do. This has impacted airports all across this country. That's the impact of what the Democrats are doing by keeping this government shut. The FAA administrator, someone with 35 years of experience in the field, he said, we're in all new territory. Never seen anything like this before. And here's what really should terrify the American people. It's one Democrat staffer said Democrats won't open the government until planes fall out of the sky. Can you believe that, Mr. President? Let that sink in. Democrats are waiting for a disaster. And in the process, they're gambling with American lives. Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut, a Democrat with presidential ambitions, based on his scheduling and his speeches, he admitted it on the record. He said in an interview just yesterday with Punchbowl News, Senator Murphy said reopening the government would do, he said, substantial damage to the Democrats' brand. There you have it. Bad for the brand of functioning government. Democrat brand means more to them than 42 million hungry Americans. The Democrat brand means more to them than military families who aren't getting paid. The Democrat brand means more to them than safety in the skies. Let's call what it is, what we're seeing with the Democrat shutdown. It is cruel and it is heartless. Now, let's be fair. Even some Democrats now recognize that it is cruel and heartless. They're starting to turn on each other. One Democrat staffer admitted to the press that the far-left Democrats in their caucus have no plan to ever end the shutdown. None. Zero. They want to keep it going forever. The staffer even admitted the far-left Democrats are hurting people and they're doing it for political gain. This is the direct quote from the Democrat staff member, Senate staff. Families who can afford it least, he said, are getting walloped every day the shutdown continues. Mr. President, Democrats can and should end this shutdown today. Republicans have a clean, bipartisan continuing resolution at the desk to reopen the government. We want to pair this with 3 full-time appropriations bills. These are bills that have already passed the Senate with bipartisan support. They've been negotiated on a bipartisan basis with the House. Progress. We need to get it done. These bills would fully fund veterans care. They would fully fund our Capitol Police. They would fully fund food assistance in America, such as SNAP and the WIC programs. This is a very reasonable deal, a reasonable proposal, a deal that Democrats earlier this week asked Republicans to put onto the floor. And if it passes, the Schumer shutdown will end quickly. 13,000 air traffic controllers will get paid. 50,000 TSA agents would get paid. 1.3 million military members would be paid. Food assistance for 42 million Americans would be fully funded. Flights would get restored. Government would reopen. Some Senate Democrats have signaled they will still vote no. No. Evidently, they want the pain. They want the pressure. And as members of this body, as well as the Democrat whip, said to the press on television, she said, they want, quote, leverage to continue so they can score political points. Let me be clear about what a no vote means. A no vote is a vote to refuse to pay air traffic controllers who are working, refuse to pay TSA agents who have been working for the last 37 days, refuse to pay members of the military who continue to defend us and are serving us all around the world, refuse to pay Capitol Police officers who are here in this very building that the Democrat senators walk by each and every time they come into this chamber. A no vote is a vote to cut more flights and to cause more chaos for families hoping to travel over Thanksgiving. A no vote is a vote to deny food to 42 million hungry Americans. A no vote means Democrats continue to play their dangerous game of the politics of pain. There is no excuse, none, Mr. President, for voting no. Don't tell me I want leverage, which is what the Democrats have been saying. The American people are not leverage, they're not pawns. When Democrats treat American people as political pawns, the American people lose. And I don't want to hear them say, I stand on principle. What are the principles when you allow 42 million Americans to continue to go hungry? The American people are watching. They're watching to see who is fighting for them and who is simply using them as leverage. Thank you, Mr. President, and I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
The Democratic whip.
Mr. President, I have one word for my colleagues on both the other side of the aisle and on my side of the aisle. One word: enough. It is time for us to get down to the business of agreeing on some basic things. I think we can. The first thing we need to do is to agree to reopen the government of the United States of America. I believe we should do it before the sun sets today at 5:02 p.m. and 39 seconds. The second thing we should agree on is to protect the families who are facing outrageous increases in health insurance premiums across the United States. We cannot address the Affordable Care Act and make dramatic changes. We need to legislate for that to happen, and that rarely ever happens around here, but it should. That should be part of our agreement. The third thing is we need to support a bipartisan appropriation process to fund our government. We're lucky. We have two leaders on the Appropriation Committee, one a Republican, Susan Collins, another a Democrat, Patty Murray, who are competent and able to achieve that goal. It is time for us to get rid of the never-ending continuing resolutions and actually appropriate money for purposes that the public sent us here to honor. The fourth thing is we need to collectively apologize and pay in full all federal employees and contractors as soon as possible. It is an embarrassment to come to work each day and realize that these wonderful people who are working with us, doing their job and doing it well and professionally, are not being paid. And finally, we need to pass legislation to guarantee that the longest shutdown in U.S. history,
is the last time Congress ever should be showing political resolve at the expense of food on the table of hungry children. Mr. President, it's time for us to act. Enough. I yield the floor.
Throughout the country. And I want to say to my colleague, I really appreciate your efforts very, very much. I know in this polarized environment it's hard to reach across the aisle, but this moment dictates that we try. I've had some discussions, and I know a lot of my colleagues have, Senator Britt and Collins and many others have spent a lot of time, Mark Wayne Mullen, trying to find common ground to open up the government so we can move forward and have a debate about health care and maybe find a solution. Apparently to no avail. There's a group of my Democratic colleagues who believe every day gets better for us. That's Senator Schumer. They, I guess, apparently feel emboldened by the election. The question I have for the country is every day getting better for you? If you're trying to get to an airport or fly somewhere, I would say not so much. If you're a government employee working, not getting paid, not so much. There are a lot of services that are being disrupted out there because the government shut down. And truth of the matter is both parties have had government shutdowns trying to get a policy win. You know, one time we shut the government down as Republicans to get money to build the wall. We eventually got money to build the wall because it was a very good idea, but it didn't happen through the shutdown. And so I learned that shutting the government down to try to get a policy win is probably not good government. And our Democratic friends, whatever day it is, they're shutting your government down, our government down, to try to make Republicans do something on health care we're just not going to do. They're trying to repeal elements of the working family tax cut, big beautiful bill, whatever you want to call it, that would prohibit health care funding going to illegal immigrants. They're trying to repeal many of the things that we think are just good reforms, over $1 trillion, pulling back $1.5 trillion to go in programs we think that are not good investments. Investing in a program where illegal immigrants can get free health care just gives you more illegal immigration. One of the things that we're trying to deal with is Medicaid has grown by 50% in the last 5 years, and we're trying to put it on a more sustainable path and helping rural hospitals. They want to take the provision out of the bill that would give $50 billion to rural hospitals to help with Medicaid reform. So we're just not going to do that. That's never going to happen, nor should it. So what do we do next? I think the first thing we need to do is understanding that the statement, every day gets better for us, is a lie. Us being the United States. Every day that this thing drags on is bad for America, it's dangerous for America, it's dangerous to our national security, the people in the FBI, the CIA that have to work no matter where they get paid, simply to protect our nation. So this madness really needs to end. I think there are plenty of people over here that would try to go forward to have a debate about health care and maybe find common ground, but not this way. The one thing I've learned in my time and up here is that taking hostages, political hostage taking, shouldn't be overly rewarded. Political terrorism should never be rewarded. And what you're doing over there by not finding a way forward, you're terrorizing the country for your own political benefit. You really are engaging in political terrorism. You're making it hard for people to do things they need to do and have to do. You're making it hard for people to get services they need because your political desire to beat us. Well, I tell you what, that needs to stop. So to my leadership here, y'all have done a great job, Senator Thune particularly, kind of saying we'll talk, but we've got to open up the government first. I really appreciate what Senator Thune has done in that regard. But I want my colleagues to know the longer this goes and the more people you hurt and the more you try to extract from your political hostage taking, the less votes you're going to get from us, starting with me. I'm not going to give in to this. We're not going to reward people who do this. I understand trying to find common ground and getting something to give something, but you've gone way too far. You're hurting way too many people. You're asking for things that are really absurd. So don't think you're going to open up the government with a handful of Democratic votes if this continues. You're going to need much more than that because you're going to lose me. I'm not going to play this game any longer. This is bad for the country, and if we do it now, it will never end. So, Senator Schumer, I couldn't disagree with you more. Every day gets better for us. You clearly need to get out of Washington and talk to people outside the wacky left. You're disconnected with real life in America. Every day this goes on doesn't get better for us. What are you asking us to do? You're demanding that we increase spending by $1.5 trillion from savings we obtained from the Working Families Tax Cut bill. We're not going to do that. But the main thing that's driving this debate is a desire by Democrats to continue a program called Obamacare that is not well designed, that is costing way too much, it's not delivering for the American people, and we're not going to do that. Senator Welch, a good friend, noted yesterday that the Affordable Care Act hasn't lived up to that billing, and there are things we can do on health care to lower cost and make life more affordable. But my statement is that the Affordable Care Act is unaffordable, and we're not going to reauthorize it because you demand we do so, because it makes no sense to keep throwing good money into this program. Now, President Obama told us back in 2010, if we pass the Affordable Care Act, which is the Unaffordable Care Act, families would have a $2,500 a year decrease in their premiums for health care. Well, that's turned out to be a big flop. Health care premiums have gone up 100% from 2013 to 2019. So the Affordable Care Act is anything but. And they're asking for $350 billion over a decade to keep these subsidies in place that they chose to do in a partisan way. They're due to expire. If they were that great, why did you let them expire? Bottom line is you're trying to hold us hostage as Republicans, making us invest in a program that's just not a good deal for America. No matter what you call it or how you want to sell it, you're selling a bad product, and that product needs to be discontinued as it exists today. Who is the biggest winner of the Affordable Care Act? Not consumers, a dramatic increase in premiums. We didn't lower premiums by $2,500 per family. They've gone up by over 100% in just a matter of years. Now you're wanting to continue subsidies that create subsidies for the Obamacare that nobody in the private sector has. The average person in America is paying about 25% of their premium that works for a company. What they're trying to do is basically have most people pay nothing and allow people making up to hundreds of thousands of dollars to get subsidies for their health care. We just can't afford that. Senator Klobuchar talked about a husband and wife that retired early from a union job that have a combined income of about $130-something thousand, that their premiums will go up. Well, the question is, do we need to be subsidizing premiums for people that make $130-something thousand that have defined benefit plans plus Social Security? The question becomes, what makes sense? What can we afford? What's the best way to help the American people? I tell you, the best way to help the American people is stop the madness when it comes to Obamacare. What has happened since the passage of this bill? Let me tell you what's happened. Healthcare companies, insurance companies in the healthcare space have had their stock go up since 2010 by over 1,000%. Now, what you want us to do is continue these subsidies that go to insurance companies that drive up the cost of health care. We're not going to do it. We're going to try to find a better way to use the money to give it to consumers so they can buy health care of their own choosing, to create competition that doesn't exist, to get a better health care outcome and save some money in the process. So Democrats are insisting that Republicans continue the practice of taking your hard-earned tax dollars and making healthcare insurance companies incredibly filthy rich. Look at this chart. This is the S&P 500. These are different companies in the space. But the main healthcare companies that benefit from Obamacare have seen their stock increase by 1,000% with no end in sight. United Healthcare, 1,177% increase in stock. Cigna, 822%, 441%. Humana, 490%. They need to up their game. MOLINA, whoever they are, 859%. SENTENE, 604%. Aetna, 595% since the passage of this bill. We are not, as Republicans, going to continue what you've created, a windfall for healthcare insurance companies, inflationary mechanisms in healthcare without an end. We're going to stop and fix what you created in 2010, which is an out-of-control inflationary approach to healthcare that rewards insurance companies over anybody else. You told a big lie to the American people when you passed this bill. Their premiums will go down by $2,500 per family. They've gone up by 100%. We're going to stop the madness. We're going to come out with a proposal that will have a different outcome than this. We're going to come out with a proposal that will allow this money to go to people to make better choices for them, to create competition that doesn't exist, and the big loser will be the insurance companies. The big winner will be the consumer. And President Trump stands ready to work with you on the other side to get an outcome we can all live with. We cannot live with this, folks. We cannot live with Obamacare and these subsidies as designed because they're creating runaway inflation in healthcare. They're rewarding the biggest healthcare companies in the country to the expense of the taxpayer. We're going to break this cycle. Now, how long will that take? I don't know. But I know this, I'm not going to be forced to continue this wasteful, inefficient program called Obamacare, and because you tell me I have to open the government. I will not. And we'll have an election one of these days, and we'll see how this plays out over time. We'll see what the American people want. Do they want to continue throwing money at insurance companies like this with increased costs to the taxpayer and people that participate in this program? Or would they like something new and different that would break the endless reward to healthcare companies and start rewarding consumers to get better outcomes and lowering their premiums? We'll have a debate about that one day. We'll have an election probably over that. But what we're not going to do is be held hostage for you to get your way, for me to vote to authorize a program that is failing, that was a lie, and I'm going to do what I can to fix this. And if you want to continue to shut down the government, holding me and others hostages to continue this garbage, we're not going to do it. We'll be rewarding the worst possible behavior in politics. You'll just get more of this. So here's my advice to my Democratic colleagues. Work with people who are trying to find a way forward, to reopen the government, to have a conversation about how to better to deliver affordable health care, working in a bipartisan manner, and we'll get to where we need to go as a country. We will not give in to political terrorism and hostage-taking. Your desire to keep the government shut down is terrorizing Americans. Americans are losing vital services. Their lives have been turned upside down because you care more about continuing a terrible program than you do them. And we're not going to give in. I promise you, I will work with you to get a better outcome. I promise you, I will vote no to your political hostage-taking and let the chips fall where they may. You're overplaying your hand. You're doing a lot of damage to good people that just want a better life and some certainty in their life. I try to work with you when I can on the other side. Sometimes we argue, and I try to argue effectively. But I will not be part of this process any longer. You're destroying the lives of Americans for a political desire that's unreasonable. You're asking me and others to continue a program that is fundamentally